what's going on? It's Dr. Ganswell Boogie here again, back for another DVD and VHS update. And like always, I have some really awesome DVDs and VHSs to show in this video, and also at the end, I have a couple new action figures I picked up and a couple random items, so I figured I'd save those for the end. But these are the DVDs and the tapes that I picked up in the past 2 weeks or so. I didn't do an update last week because I didn't really have enough stuff to show, so I figured I'd wait another week. And over this weekend I picked up a bunch more stuff, so I figured it was a good time to do an update right about now. So I'm just going to get started with the DVDs. First up here we have I Spit on Your Grave, and this is an interesting horror movie. I actually used to own this years ago, so it's been a while since I've seen it. This is one of the rape revenge exploitation films from the 70s, which were pretty popular around that time. And you know, this is probably the first exploitation film I've ever seen. But like I said, I haven't seen it in a while, so I was always interested in picking this one up again. I don't think it's anything too great because I'm not actually that big of a fan of those rape revenge films. I think the best is Last House on the Left, which has its own twist on it, which the parents are the actual ones getting the revenge. And in most of these movies, it's the actual girl who gets the revenge. But that's what makes Last House on the Left even more of an intense film. Just one of the best in that genre. If you've never seen that, definitely check out Last House on the Left. But this one is still decent too. What made me kind of want to pick this one up again is recently I picked up a movie called Thriller, A Cruel Picture, or it's also known as They Call Her One Eye, which is also a rape revenge movie. And you know, it kind of just got me back into the whole genre, and it's, you know, it's some of those movies are kind of fun to watch, so I figured I'd give this one another chance. And I found this really awesome edition. This is like the Millennium edition, but the spine of this is like shiny gold. I don't know if it's picking up good on the camera, and the banner at the top is also like that, and it's in a really nice like silver gray case. So just a really nice edition of this movie. So I was glad to find this and pick it up. This is also the Elite edition of this movie. So really cool here. Next up here is actually Mother of Tears, and this is a newer Dario Argento movie. I think this one came out in like 2007, 2008. This one stars his daughter, Asia Argento, who's gorgeous. And I've actually been wanting to check out more of his movies. I have a lot of his classic films, but I don't have many of the things he did after that, like, you know, anything he did after his, like, classic films. So I've always wanted to been checking out more of his stuff. My friend Joel has always told me to check this one out because it's the third part in the Three Mothers trilogy, which also includes Inferno and Suspiria, which I think are two of Dario Argento's just best films overall. And so, you know, I figured why not check this one out. I saw it at FYE for $3, so I was like, why not? Next up here is actually the Evil Dead remake, which I saw this with my dad around the time this movie came out, and I thought it was decent. Nothing special, nothing spectacular, but as for horror remakes go, I thought it was decent. Because I actually really don't like horror remakes. I tried thinking really hard about it once why, because there is certain horror movie remakes and remakes in general that I love. John Carpenter's The Thing, for instance, is a remake. Scarface, the 80s one, is a remake. And those movies are great. But a lot of recent remakes, I feel like, don't really... They take too much from the original and basically rip it off. And it's hard to do a remake because you're either ripping off the movie or you're changing it so much you have a chance to isolate the original fan base. But that's why you got to pick a movie that doesn't have like a humongous fan base already, like Evil Dead. Like when John Carpenter remade The Thing, I mean, that movie was somewhat popular, but it didn't have like a huge following like Evil Dead does now. So it's just, I think you have to pick the right type of movie, because in my opinion, certain movies really don't need to be remade. And Evil Dead, that movie is good for more than just its story and stuff like that. Just everything about that film, the people who made it, that's what makes that movie special. It's what makes it a good movie. So this movie was just lacking a lot of that, and just what you would expect from a modern day horror movie and even a modern day remake. But I still, out of a lot of the remakes I've seen recently, I think this is one of the better ones. So I figured I'd pick it up for the Evil Dead collection. You know, I figured why not. Alright, and here is the last for the horror DVDs, and this is Friday the 13th. And this is actually my third edition of Friday the 13th I own on DVD. This is one of my favorite horror movies ever, and the whole Friday the 13th series, especially the first 8 films, is my favorite horror movie, like, franchise series. I just love it. I usually watch it like 2 times a year, sometimes even more than that. I just love the films, and this is a really cool edition of this movie. It's just the basic, let me get this out of here, the basic widescreen Paramount edition for DVD, which I love these editions. I own the 3rd and 4th one like this, and I hope to soon pick up part 2 like this also. But just really cool. So I've always wanted to pick this edition up because I own the newer release of this movie on DVD, like the unrated release or whatever it's called. And I also own a 2-pack with Friday the 13th Part 2, 1 and 2 on one disc. So I've always wanted to get this separate in this edition, so I was glad to pick it up. And it came with this awesome holographic slipcover, which I thought was pretty cool. And I got this for real cheap. It was brand new for like $4.95 or something like that, so I thought it was a good deal. It's really cool. And if you grew up in the early 90s like me, you know holographic is just awesome for comic books and pogs and all that good early 90s stuff. So this was just really cool, and surprisingly, out of all the things I picked up this weekend, this was actually the DVD I was most excited about when I got home for some reason. So I was really glad I picked this one up. Alright, next up here I just have a couple other DVDs I figured I would show. Picked up Legend, which is a Ridley Scott film. And Ridley Scott is one of my favorite directors. I love Alien and I love Blade Runner. Blade Runner is probably my all-time favorite movie. It's like hard to decide between that, Videodrome, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. I just love those movies so much, but this is one that I've always wanted to see from him. I've never really seen this movie good, and even last time I tried to watch this, which was like 3-4 days ago, I fell asleep halfway through it, so I was a little disappointed in myself, but it seemed like a really good movie, just a very very nice looking movie. The visual cinematography, just very beautiful, epic, just fits very well with the fantasy story that he's going with for this. It seemed like a good movie, so I'm really looking forward to finally getting through this whole movie, because it seems like I would probably like it. I'm not actually not that big into fantasy like movies, but in my opinion this one does seem more up my alley, because it has like the devil in it and all that, and I'm always into stuff like that. So just always a movie I wanted to check out, and especially since Ridley Scott put this one out right after Blade Runner, so I've always been interested in seeing this one really good. So you know, have to see what I think about it when I finally watch it all the way through. Alright, and next up here is a movie called Heathers. This is actually a late 80s, like, high school black comedy movie. I've actually never seen this before, but recently I was rewatching I Love the 80s, the old VH1 show, which just for a minute I want to talk about that show. I think it's one of the best shows ever, and it's, you know, sort of dated now because the actors and people who did the interviews on that show, it was filmed like 10 years ago. It's like some of them are dead now, so it's like they can't really rerun them on TV, but I love the old VH1 I Love the 80s series. It's up on YouTube and I watch it all the time. But last time I was watching it, for some reason when they were talking about this movie Heathers, it really seemed interesting to me, so looking forward to checking this one out too. And then last for the DVDs is Back to the Future, which this is just an awesome movie, and I'm sure most people have seen this. I've actually seen this one before I picked it up. It's just had been a while, so I was glad to rewatch this. And just a really awesome science fiction comedy movie. Just, there's, you know, everything that needs to be said about this movie has already been said, but my opinion on this movie is just really great. I would say it's one of the better comedies, like comedy sci-fi movies that come out of the 80s, because there was a good chunk of movies like that come out of the 80s. This is definitely probably one of the best. And this also has Crispin Glover in it as George McFly, which I think is one of Crispin Glover's best roles. And Crispin Glover is probably one of my favorite actors ever. I just think the dude is awesome. And my favorite role of his is in Friday the 13th Part 4. It's just my favorite characters he's ever played is in that movie. It's a great movie, though, Back to the Future. Right, then I have a small pile of tapes. This is a movie, this is like a 90s movie called Mirage. I'm actually not sure too much about this one, but I picked this one up because Sean Young is in it, and she's in Blade Runner, and I think she does a great job in that movie, so I've always been interested in checking out some more of her movies. Mirage. I actually looked this one up on the computer, and I actually don't think you can get this on DVD. I think the only way you can get this movie is on this tape. Sometimes it's a bad sign, and sometimes that could mean that this is a, you know, unique type movie, just kind of interesting. So looking forward to just seeing what this one's all about. Then I picked up this cool CBS Fox edition of Star Wars, and this is the original Star Wars before George Lucas even started to number these things. And that's what I love about these original Star Wars is they're you know, how in my mind how the movie should be. Hasn't been all tampered with by George Lucas adding in new effects and whatever. It seems like every 5 to 10 years he updates the films, and each time he adds new things, and it's like already gotten to the point where I don't even feel like it's the same exact film anymore. So I really don't like directors who do that. There's like a whole fad in the late 90s and early 2000s where directors were making the final cuts of their movies. I mean, even Ridley Scott did it with Blade Runner, but even more directors are doing it. Steven Spielberg with E.T. So, in my opinion, once the movie is out, you know, it should be done. You know, Stanley Kubrick, when he put a movie out, that movie was done. You know, if it took him a year more than it was supposed to, he would do that. But you know, that's what I'm saying. It just doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't make sense to me, or it doesn't seem right to me to do that with the film. But you know, I love the original Star Wars movies, some of the best sci-fi movies, and I've been watching these since I was like a real little kid. And I also picked up The Empire Strikes Back, so I just gotta try to find The Return of the Jedi in these old CBS Fox cases, and I'll have the whole original trilogy, in my opinion, how it was meant to be seen, the original theatrical cuts of these films. And I have nothing against director's cuts. I don't want you to like take me wrong, but what George Lucas did, which I know a lot of people agree, is just taking it a step further, in my opinion, than a director's cut. So this is pretty cool, in my opinion. These two Star Warses, and then the last tape is actually this movie David Lynch produced about. It's called Crumb, but it's about the graphic designer R. Crumb. Or Robert Crumb, I think is his name. I actually don't remember. But this is actually what one of my dad's favorite artists, and he showed me this movie probably like 5 years ago, and I thought it was pretty interesting. This guy Crumb here, he does like cartooning, and he did like comic books, and he also did cartoons. He's like best known for his cartoon Fritz the Cat, which is like an R-rated or X-rated cartoon that he put out in the 70s, I think. It's been a while since I've seen this documentary, so I definitely have to watch it again. So if anybody is a fan of this guy's work, I'm, you know, a little lost on my facts about him right now. But yeah, just figured I'd check this one out again because my dad showed me this movie years ago, and I thought it was interesting. The artist Robert Crumb, or R. Crumb, is just is a very eccentric and like perverted guy, and he puts a lot of that into his artwork, and it just makes for some very interesting drawings and stuff. So just an interesting guy and a pretty interesting documentary. This is what this is. It's like a documentary movie about this guy's life, or it like just follows him. I'm like, it's like I said, it's been a while since I've seen this, so I'm getting a little confused about it. But I think from what I remember, it just like followed him around for like a couple days, but it also told about his like whole career at the same time with like interviews and everything else. And I just remember it being weird. Like his brother still like lives with his mother, and his whole family is just very odd. The whole movie is just a very strange movie. So it's, you know, fitting that David Lynch presented this. So that's Crumb for you. Alright, and like I said, I had a couple figures here that I wanted to show. First off here, I picked up the Aliens Xenomorph Warrior figure, which, just like the last one, it's hard to show these with the glare on the screen and everything. But these are some really nice looking figures, and I just want to keep these in the packages and put them on my walls, because I love the Alien films, especially the first two. And the design of the alien creature by H.R. Geiger is just one of the best designs for a movie monster ever, in my opinion. And then I also picked up this Predator figure, which I thought was pretty cool too. And this is actually not based on any of the Predators from the movies, obviously, but this is actually based on a figure from the 90s Kenner Toys Predator series. So it's like a remake of an older Predator figure, which I think is really cool. I kind of picked this one up at random. I just thought it looked cool, and I was like, why not? Right, and then last here, I have two just real random things to show. This is actually a copy of Stephen King's Pristine on Book, and I picked this one up because this is actually the release that came out when John Carpenter's film came out. So it has, you know, some of the pictures from the movie in it, and I've been wanting to collect not just John Carpenter, but other directors, like other books, like based on horror movies. Like I also have The Fog, you know what I'm saying, like the adaptions of the books for the movies or whatnot. So I also want to get like Halloween and Friday the 13th on Book. Most of the time it was like the screenplays were turned into a book around the same time of the movie, but of course with this case this was already a book before John Carpenter turned it into a movie. But this is just the movie edition of the book, I guess. It's just the simplest way to put this. And last here is a cassette tape that I bought, an audio tape with horror movie theme songs on it, which I thought this was kind of interesting. It actually comes with the Leprechaun theme, the Exorcist theme, Halloween, Hellraiser, Warlock, Puppet Master, Reanimator, Candyman, The Seventh Sign, don't know what that is, Jacob's Ladder, Child's Play, and Twilight Zone. So I thought this had some interesting and some pretty good themes on it, so I figured why not pick this up. It was only 50 cents at the thrift store I was at. I usually don't pick up audio cassettes too often, but I thought this one was pretty cool. So that was the update for this week, and like always, I hope you guys enjoyed it and liked the video. Definitely give it a thumbs up or a comment if you did, and thanks for watching.